Hey, Pusnet, new little video. This one is a little bit of dark, the dark side, darker video. Lately, I've been teaching where I work. I end up having to teach decontamination for what we're doing, and one thing that keeps coming back over and over is because it would happen in kind of disaster, and so we talk about reverse triage, and I did videos about that in the past, and I'll put links down about to those videos. But I wanted to bring back the concept, so it won't be too long of a video because I already talked about that. But I wanted to bring it back because back then I didn't have not all of you were there, so I wanted to bring back that conversation. And the reason why is that again, just like in the past, it seems like that doesn't change much, and I get more questions now, which I just love, by the way, when I do videos like on honey or dressings and things. And one question that doesn't seem to be brought a lot up is, and kind of ties up to that video I did, kind of video response slash dressing slash antibiotics rant that I did in the past, is that we won't be able to save everyone. And when I say everyone, a lot of people like, yeah, the unprepared is like, no, there's some people in your group, and maybe even somebody that is very close to you, very dear to you, may not make it. And we may have you may have, as a person that has that knowledge, the person that is in charge, may have to take very, very hard decision. And I'll put the link of one book, but I'm sure I mentioned in the past video. It's called In the Mind of Serial Killers. And you're like, wow, okay, what does that have to do? Is that there's some profession, and for example, healthcare professional is one of those things, but police, spies, and everything, you sometimes have to disconnect yourself with your own emotion if you want to take the best decision for the group. And this is where it ties up with this reverse triage. So for example, in a situation where you have too much people that you can't handle, which basically by definition is a disaster for hospitals, you may reverse. So for example, if someone comes in cardiac arrest in a hospital, we send a lot of our resource, like almost all resource, they everything stopped for them. But in a case where, because we want to save that life, so that one life is worth a lot. But in a case of disaster where our resources are limited and we have too much people to take for, our decision change, as now our goal is to save as many lives as we can. And one person that would take a lot of resource will take, and resource we mean either dressing people. So for example, if we take back that example of cardiac arrest, you need a lot of doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, and other professional to help with this people. Well, if all those people are tied to one person, then they cannot help 5 or 6 or 7 other people. And so we take those resources and we give it to the other person. And so in a certain way, we decide who lives, who dies. And to be able to take that decision is pretty hard. And so when it comes to resource, and I'll link also a course that I took through Coursera, which brought some interesting conversation about that. But through our evolution of healthcare system, I mean, we as Westerner healthcare system, mostly North America, so Canada and the United States, we had to face some of those challenges. So an example of that is insulin. For those that didn't know the history of insulin, it actually came here in Canada, and this is what we call Humulin Toronto, because it was created in Toronto. And the person that was making them was a hard process, and so before they could synthesize it and create it on a large scale, he had very limited source. So I don't know how many doses he would have, but let's say 10. Well, if he had 30 people coming for 10 doses of insulin, he had to decide who to give them to. And so then how do you make that decision? And that goes into the realm of ethics, or and there's different ways of approaching. And so this is what that course of rationalization was. And I think it would be a good idea to look at some of those concepts, because especially when we talk about in the ones that I'm kind of seeing with a situation of self-reliance would be dressings. If you have someone, for example, that has a major burn, their chance of survival is very low, or trauma. So dressing and trauma would be the kind of the two ones that I kind of see issues with that. You don't want to lose all your good dressings for that, for those people, because now the resource that you have, if you're throwing all your good dressing on someone that doesn't have much of a chance to survive, is you're losing your resource. And it seems like, how can you talk about that? And we're here to save life and everything, and it's true. And this is why it is important to start talking about this when there's no disaster, when it's calm head, and put some protocols inside. Because when you're in the middle of it and you see this person, you say, yeah, no, I'm not putting the right dressing on you, because if we do this, then we lose something else. Then it's a hard decision, and a lot of people will be offended. A lot of people would have go against that. And a good example of this is in the last season of well, not last season, but the season finale of Dead Man Walking, is where they go, because she needs a doctor. They're trying to look for the doctor, so they're trying to get to the other community for that. Well, they put in jeopardy a lot of people. So from a medical person point of view, I wouldn't have allowed that situation. And so it's an interesting thing, because now they're in a situation where there's pros and cons, and we can have a debate on that. But as a medical person, that situation, because they put so much resource, they send all their good warriors out, they try to transport her, they now they have someone, and so basically they jeopardize the whole group for one person. Do we have the right to do that for one person and decide that this person now is less than the group? Technically yes, technically no. This is where this is one realm of ethics, because there's no right or wrong decision in that, and because everybody can make a case for one thing and everybody can make a case for something else. But this is why I wanted to bring that concept, and then again I'll put a few, because I did one or two videos, because those would be important, not interesting, but important conversation and question to ask yourself, your own self, because I cannot give you the answer. I cannot say again, for me on that case I would have done this, and see that group did something else. So it always depends on the group. And again, now that if you add a few peoples in that, they could probably take decisions that are quite different, and you can see that there would be a lot of fight and interaction. So I wanted to bring back that concept back in the discussion, because as some videos will come further along, like I was saying, trauma and wound care, I may start to introduce that concept of palliative care, of withholding dressings, or withholding some treatment, or choosing a less less effective dressing, but a better use of your resource if you're limited in resource. And again, and this is why I want to bring it back, because I want people to understand where it comes from. And like I said, I did some videos in the past, but they were more before everybody comes, and so people that and have a conversation of it. And on the second level to this, and I'll put again links for some of the stuff in there, is that it's a society conversation that you should even have, not just for preparedness in case a disaster happens and stuff, but for your own life as well. There's more and more studies now that shows that a lot of people die in a hospital, or family have to face decision on because nobody really have that conversation. There's a great book by Sherman. I'll put the link down, but it's called How We Die, and it's a very interesting conversation to have, because it's almost like, as a society now, we have forgotten that that is part of our life, and no matter how we prepare and we try to survive and everything, that will happen. And so then it's more, how are you gonna have it happen? And so now, even if it's not part of your preparedness as for a disaster, even on our own life, in our own situation, having a conversation and discussion, so that when times happen, as a healthcare professional, it's a good conversation to have, because as our population age, so mother, father, yourself, your mother, your sister, your child, or something, it's very important to have this conversation as a society, because to decide so that your decision, whatever it is respected, and the healthcare team goes with your decision, not somebody else's decision. So anyway, like I said, a little bit dark thing, but there'll be a lot of links down, and I wanted to bring back as a concept on both of those things. So bring it back as a concept that I already mentioned, but also bring that notion as well of it's a discussion that society needs to have. So I'll talk to you soon.